safety is, it's very personal. So you cannot think about, okay, this measure is gonna create a very safe place for everybody. You always need to take the local perspective, think about who is using the place and also who is not using the place, because they might feel unsafe and that's why they are not using the place.
Smart City, what is it about? Thank you so much for giving your valuable time to listen to Urbanistica podcast season number 2. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Don't forget to follow Instagram account to see the stories behind the scenes, and also subscribe the YouTube channel to see the live talks. Let's get in touch on LinkedIn, share your reflections with us, with Urbanistica community. Recommend the podcast to people you think are interested in Urbanistica topics. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. I'm looking forward to this episode. We're gonna talk about safety in connection to places, situation, and urban planning. I have the pleasure to welcome my guest Cornelis to Urbanistica podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, actually.
Thank you so much again for giving your time one more time to Urbanistica podcast.
Yes, no problem.
We recorded actually an episode, but it was in Swedish.
Yep. But we got some reactions from the international audience also. Exactly. It would be interesting to record it in English, so we do some recap.
Yes, amazing. So how are you doing? You're ready?
Yep. Although, you are never ready, There's always something going on.
How is it going now during the COVID-19? Did you manage to work digitally? Everything went good?
We do a lot digitally, of course, as everybody. Although I have been at the office maybe once a day, a week, or out in the field doing some field work. But otherwise, most of the conversations happen online. But it seems to be working out quite okay.
Yeah. That's great to hear. So, Cornelis, you know the structure of the conversation, and we always start with the storyteller, and today it's you. So how would you like to introduce yourself, and please tell us what are you passionate about?
So my name is Cornelis Uittenbogaard, or for those who can speak Dutch, Uittenbogaard. So I'm an urban planner at the Safer Sweden Foundation. And there I am working with everything basically connected to issues concerning crime, crime prevention, and safety in general when it comes to urban planning, when it comes to design and city making, you can say. I've now been working at the Safer Sweden Foundation for 4 years. Started autumn 2016 after I finished my PhD at the Royal Institute of Technology here in Stockholm, KTH, where I actually did my thesis on safety in connection to how the metro stations in Stockholm are designed and how the surroundings are affecting our feelings of safety and the crime levels. So before I started working at the Safer Sweden Foundation, I already took a dive into the topic of safety and urban planning, but actually out of nowhere, you can say, because I was doing my master thesis at the Royal Institute of Technology. And then I came in contact with Professor Vanya Sekato, which maybe a few of you know. And she is a geographer and has a focus on issues of crime, basically, and crime prevention. And she had a project going on with the local public transport authority in Stockholm about this, specifically like this design. So we've started out with some small report, basically freelance job after I finished my master's. But then it turned into a PhD, which is great.
Yes, exactly. So if we start with how do you define safety?
I would say that safety is basically a feeling. You can look at the crime levels. You can look at what is happening in a place, but that is basically just pure facts. And even though a lot of crimes are reported to the police, there is still also a really dark number up to half of the crimes are not even reported to the police, depending on type of crime, of course. If it's very serious, you want to report it. If not for insurance, then for the seriousness. From the crude numbers, the crime numbers, you cannot really say actually how, what is happening in a place and how people feel about it. There's a huge difference in your feeling of safety, so your perception, as compared to what is really happening, so the stats. In English it's a bit mixed terms. You use security, which is more like hardware and more like objective, I would say, and you use safety and feeling of safety or perceived safety as like the more soft numbers and how people really feel, how they feel safe, basically. In Sweden we use the terms säkerhet and the other one then trygghet, which more in depth make a distinguishment between the crude numbers, the facts, and the subjective feelings. But of course, what is happening in a place, maybe like the band Boston, they have the song "It's More Than a Feeling." I would say that safety is actually more than just a feeling, because it's also about how people are talking about the place. If there's a lot of crime that just happened at the place, it's going to affect your perception of this specific place, how you perceive a certain place or specific situations. Is also depending on what happened to yourself, your background, where do you come from, how did you grow up, what kind of situations were you in, are you like economically stable, can also affect you. So it's a lot of factors that can actually come into play when it comes to your feeling of safety. For instance, if we are sitting in this room here, I can feel very safe, but because nothing is happening, maybe nothing ever happened in this room, so basically from the facts perspective, it's super safe here. It's very secure, but I might perceive it as safe also. But you might have had a podcast here where somebody attacked you during the podcast, so you might have this totally different experience in which, in that case, you would have a more unsafe feeling than me. So it's very personal, this also.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And I wanted to ask you, so there's a difference between how different people, different genders feel about safety. So is there a big difference between how women and men experience the safe? Can we say like experience safety or feel about safety?
Yeah, it is basically experience. I would say, if you want to make it a term, you in research they usually use perceived safety or feelings of safety. So we can. But you can ask how people experience the safety in a certain place. And yes, there is we can say there is a huge difference between how the different genders, how men perceive safety in certain situations, or in general, actually. There's been a lot of research on this, the differences between different groups. It always depends on the certain situation and the certain type of crime or thing that happens to a person. But there is there is a gender gap between how people perceive safety. In general, men do feel more safe as compared to women, but especially when it comes to night times or when it's darker, or when it comes to crimes that happen in the public space, women do feel even more unsafe. The gap is even bigger. When we look at the Swedish statistics, we can see that 1/3 of the women feel unsafe to go out alone during the night, for instance. Even up to half of all the women living in the suburbs, or actually the so-called what are they called, socially disadvantaged areas that are ranked by the police also. There is even up to half of all the women living there that report that they are not willing to go out during night because they feel unsafe, as compared to, what is it? It's maybe 20% of men. And I think there was, I always pull up those numbers on the presentations. Now I don't have a presentation here, but a few years ago there was a global kind of survey about people, about their safety or security. And they also had a question about if people dare to go out alone during nighttime in their neighborhood or in the local area. and you could see that they classified it for each continent also. But actually in Europe we had the biggest gender gap. It was the biggest difference between how men and women feel safe or not. Even up to, I think, like 25% difference over the whole of Europe as compared to all the other continents. So actually Europe had the biggest gap, even when we compare it to Africa or compare it to South America. In Asia, the numbers were actually rather the same and quite high. But we know about like Japan, and they have quite strict rules, and there the gender differences are for certain things not so big. I think they even had for both men and women in Japan, or for instance, like up to 75% that feel safe to go out alone during night. So that's really high. But here it was rather like 50% for men, and then let's say 25% for women, or something like that.
Yeah,
That was a huge difference.
yeah.
But of course, it all depends on what is the certain situation, the time of the day, or which person you are with. Or
And do we have other groups that not feeling safe? Like if we talk about kids, young girls, what are the groups that we're prioritizing when we talk about safety? Or we just look at, okay, men, women?
we do sometimes, but we shouldn't, of course. And even like within the groups, men and women, there are huge differences. Not all women feel the same in the same situation. So they also need to be very careful with not like drawing very general conclusions. But otherwise, in general, we should, the focus should be, of course, we want to have cities and places where everybody feels safe. But the fact is that when we look, for instance, at what is happening in public space, or if we look at the surveys who feel safe, then okay, it's mainly men that feel safe, even though men as a group are more victimized when it comes to, for instance, outdoor violence, for instance. But they still feel more safe than women. The activities done in the public space, you can say. There are certain research and projects that show that those spontaneous activities, they are mainly like up to 80% even performed by men. So it's mainly men that make use of the public space. So if we want to improve the safety for all, for everybody, then we should focus on the groups of women and also girls especially. Children, they are. It's difficult to get, of course, how kids feel, especially young kids, how they feel about safety. And it's often connected to their way to school, for instance. But there you can actually see that there are depending, but quite a lot of kids do feel unsafe to go to school, like themselves, for instance. And it is, of course, a trend that parents leave the kids, drop them off by car. We can also see that, like, historically, parents are more and more like limiting the kids' space to move around. I mean, like 50 years ago, kids could go, 5 kilometers from their home, just they let them run free. But now I think it's limited to on average 600 meters or something, which has to do a lot with that there's more traffic. So it's more also about safety when it comes to traffic and like accidents, not just crime perceptions. But I think in general, society has become more aware of risk in a negative way, though, that we are more limiting ourselves and we are more afraid.
Yeah. So you mentioned in the beginning that the background, the gender, and the stories that you heard about the place affect how you experience the safety. If we talk from the architectural, urban planning, and design point of view, what are the elements that make a place unsafe or safe? Lighting, what are the other elements?
In general, how you perceive safety is a lot about if you are in control of your own situation. And then it means both like physical control. So there it also can make a difference if you're younger or older. Younger people have easier to run away from a certain situation or defend themselves. But it's also about like control in terms of the physical environment. So like the design really affects your ability to, for instance, have a good overview of a place, to predict what is going to happen around the corner, or what are the other persons, how are they going to act, how are they going to react to certain situations. And thinking about designing a place to be safe, it's a lot about this the feeling of that you can see other people, so there need to be other people in the place, but also that other people can see you. So that in case of if something happens, you should be able to call for help, or other people can see that something is happening so they can react on what is happening, or call for professional help themselves, of course. But then when you think more like in detail about how you design a place, planning in general, like city planning, it's a lot basically safety is about quite basic things, but it's often forgotten in the process when planning for areas that, okay, this also affects the safety feeling, so maybe we should pay a bit more attention to this part. But it's about like basics, like as you should have a mix of functions, a variety of things to do in a place. When you think about like certain buildings, we should plan for having like smaller, let's talk about shops, or you should plan for having smaller shops or several entrances in one building instead of one big shop, because that provides opportunities for people to have contact, but also to run into different doors if something happens, for instance, or but it also provides extra surveillance, like informal surveillance, because there are more shopkeepers, for instance, who can have like control, or not like control as the police does, like having a specific like eagle eye on the street and trying to control everything, but like just this informal way of controlling a place. So like this observing, and that has a lot to do with the urban planning, that we place functions in a way that they are like centrally located, that they are close to places where people move around, that we have a mix of functions, as I said, that is not just apartments in a certain area, that is not just the offices, because those places, the office areas, are dead during nighttime, so it's probably very unsafe because you're the only one walking around there without anybody else. But when you talk about different functions, it's not only about to put different functions in a place. When it comes to being able to control your situation and to feel safe, it's also about having like clear, not like physical borders, but that you know what to expect in certain areas. So the different functions need to have their own area with clear connections, and it should be clear for you how to use the different places, how you should act in different places. Talking about like residential areas, it should be clear, okay, this is somebody's private garden, I shouldn't go here and do my picnic there. On the other hand, we do not want to build those gated communities. We do not want to make small places safe just for a small group of people. That's gonna even make those people outside of this area even more unsafe, because they don't have any connection. And there, I think actually, when you look at the newly built projects in Sweden then, but I think internationally, there is more a trend of making the courtyards closed up. It is, of course, the positive that it's very safe, very controllable for those residents living there, but it's gonna make it even more, you can call it basically a safety segregation. It's gonna make the public areas even more unsafe, because there's no connection between the private and the public space. And you have talked with Jan Gell. It's a lot about the human scale also, making places that are, so you can have a good overview and that you can relate yourself to a place. You work with identity, that you can recognize the specific places, wayfinding, knowing your way. And there it is a lot about like planning from a like more general perspective also. The layout of an area that is like, that you can naturally navigate through the area without putting up too much signage.
You didn't mention lighting.
No. I didn't. And actually, not really consciously, but yet consciously. Of course, lighting is important. And here in the north in Scandinavia, we have very dark months. It's half of the year it's dark, basically from lunchtime to when you wake up, or even later when you go to work. But I would say that lighting is important, but we have seen so many projects around, in Sweden, but also internationally, where it's just the focus on putting up more lights. And putting up just more lights doesn't make an area more safe. It can even make it more unsafe. If you put up too many lights, too harsh lights, then the contrast between the lighted up area and the shadows becomes even more stronger. So you create even more hiding places, you create even more unsafe places. So, and lighting is actually basically just a tool to increase the overview, to increase the social control, to make people use a place, to make possibilities for different activities also when it's dark. So yeah, I wouldn't prioritize lighting, but of course it is an important part. And at the Safer Sweden Foundation, we also work with with a basic model for our analysis, and lighting is it is one of the 9 aspects that we work with, besides then the urban design and the clarity in the area, different functions and different people and stuff.
When I work with in community engagement projects, I got a lot of comments, feedback about how bad is the light in the different suburbs. For instance, they call it spotlight. When there's a very strong light in the street pointing on just one spot, and then you cannot see what's happening around you. Do you think there is a lack of light designers, or why it's happening like this?
Maybe I don't think there's a lack of light designers. Maybe sometimes there are too many in a certain project. But I think there's a lack of coordination when it comes to putting up the lights in an area, especially when it comes to safety. Because lights can have different functions. They can be a navigation point. They can be there to increase safety, visibility, but they can also be just architectural aspect, or just art installation, so to say, or a playful part of the environment. But they all contribute to making the place more attractive and making the place more safe. So I think that this is basically the important part, which is often lacking, especially in existing areas where already the lighting has been installed since before, and we are just working as it is basically. But also when it comes to planning new areas, those aspects like lights, they often come in quite late in the planning phase. As a safety perspective, it's often done, okay, now we have this plan, okay, now we have to put up the lights. Or now we have to think about, okay, how is the safety going to be affected when we plan like this exactly? So it's not like a natural thing to think about. And then I think you can easily come to this kind of contrast, and that, okay, you think, okay, here we put up this spotlight, but actually it's going to make it even darker in the other places. So I think it's a lot about coordination and putting up a plan for the overall lighting in the area.
Whose responsibility to plan a safe area?
That's a big question. When we talk about planning, especially when we talk about Sweden, the municipalities have a quite strong role in planning, and they have quite a monopoly position in the planning process. So from their perspective, it should be a demand to plan for safe places, safe cities. And they should have some guidelines on this, on how they think that the architects, for instance, should consider safety in their in their projects. On the other hand, I think safety is actually an aspect that should be concerned by everybody, because safety is also about it is a lot about the place. As I said, it depends on the situation. So the municipality cannot have an overview of all the different situations or how everybody feels in every different area. They often have a general view. They can perform safety audits, but it doesn't give them specifically the safety feeling for each and every individual in the municipality at this specific time, at this specific place. So it's also a responsibility for the inhabitants, the residents, but also the local companies. They are a very important part in creating safe places. The local shop owner at the square, or the woman running the library, for instance. They are there every day. They know what is happening at the place, and they can also contribute with making the place more safe by, for instance, taking the chairs from the cafe outside on the square, making sure that they leave on the lights in the shop during the nighttime, because if they shut down the lights, it's gonna be a dark facade, and it's not gonna give this nice spread of light on the square, for instance. When it comes to planning new areas, first of all, I would say, okay, the municipality has a responsibility to make sure that certain rules are followed when it comes to safety. Then it's up to the architects that they have the knowledge to work with this this perspective. But then when it comes to the long run, it's actually about the ones using the place, the ones who have activities there, who have shops, who have businesses. It's also their responsibility to make sure that things are happening, that there's the right information, for instance, on where to call when something happens, or who to contact when you want to report something that's broken. To work with exercising like this informal way of control. So, and even inhabitants, even residents in the residential areas, it's not for them, I would say, it's not for them to like act and, for instance, apprehend the offender. That's task for the police or like a official organization. But it is a kind of a responsibility for everybody living in a society to think as a society as a whole, and to make sure that other people do feel safe. For instance, partake in safety walks or night walks. There are a lot of examples in Sweden where you have like small groups walking around at night in the neighborhood, or organized activities, making your other co-residents part of the local area and stuff.
So community has a main role in keeping the area safe as well.
Yeah, I would say so. Because if you have a community that is not really feeling a responsibility for the area, they will not go around and take away the trash from the street, maybe repaint the fence that is broken, for instance. They will not mow their grass on their private lawn in front. And actually research shows that this maintenance has an impact on feelings of safety, but also crime levels. For certain, at certain places, offenders do recognize a place that is not well maintained as, okay, this is a place where there's no control. Nobody takes care of this area. Nobody even wants to take care of this area. It's like, whatever. So here I can do whatever I want. So, okay, I go inside here and steal some stuff and things. And so that can actually, not engaged local population can lead to more crime and feelings of unsafety, actually.
When I before I moved to Stockholm, actually, I heard about how is the situation in Stockholm, the crime, the safety. So I was looking for accommodation, and then I found accommodation in a suburb, and it was very well known that the number of crimes and how it was unsafe. So I was super scared, actually. But I have no option, so I need to be there and to rent this room during my studies. So when I lived in this suburb, I didn't really experience how bad it was as how I was reading in the newspapers and so on. So what is your reflection about like these stories about suburbs that are unsafe? But for me, like I was a local in that suburb, and I really didn't experience it was it was so bad.
I think there are two sides of the coin here, actually, because the fact is that the suburbs in Stockholm, there are higher crime levels. There are more things happening there. We have had huge problems, like last year or 2 years ago, with burning cars, and the emergency services not daring to go like alone as one person to act in this area. They always took backup, always wanted to go to the suburbs with 2 cars, for instance. Because when they went with 1 car, they would be quite sure that they would get stones thrown at them or something from the, you can say, local criminals. But that's also the thing. Those areas, they are on this list of vulnerable areas from the police, and that's not for no reason, of course, but there are different reasons behind there. But it is, you can say that it is a fact that there are more crimes happening in those areas. And those areas are also, it's like a very small group that is actually ruling this area and making it their own society, making their own rules, their own, also putting own demands on how the space is used. But then you have like this large group of residents, of which some might feel very safe, actually, because they never encountered this kind of situations, or they are living there, but they have they have a lot of friends around, they have a good social life also. They might not end up actually in a situation that they have to cross this certain street where this gang is hanging around, or where there's a lot of drug dealing during the nighttime alone. They might also go there. They might always go there with a friend, for instance, or they might not go there during nighttime, or they know to avoid certain streets. That's also a possibility. But there is, the surveys do show that people do feel unsafe in those areas also. As I said, like up to half of all the women don't dare to go out during nighttime in the suburbs. There is always two sides there, I would say, because you have this very serious situation which we have to deal with, which is a lot about the security. We have to make sure that those things do not happen there. On the other hand, we do have also groups that do feel safe, and maybe relatively compared to other countries internationally, it's still nothing happening there. Sweden is quite an okay country. But you can see that we have a very serious situation in the suburbs, and in other countries we might not have the situation that emergency services don't want to go alone, for instance. But there is also a different culture behind it, and those suburbs in Sweden, or in Stockholm mainly, or the bigger cities, they are very segregated, and there's a lot of like immigrant population living there, which have a different background, and that makes a hard clash between the Swedish cultures also, and also how the Swedish organizations act. They might act in a totally different way, which they don't really understand. So it might actually be a communication problem between the two cultures. In the suburbs, we know that there are situations where for instance, the local square is like mainly men using the square. So women feel like, okay, the square is dominated by men. I might not use it, or I'm not allowed to use it, which is a bit of a cultural problem, I would say, from a cultural background, or problem. That's how their culture is, which is different here in Sweden. You need to work on a lot of different levels there. It is it is something to work with, and depending, I would say, if you go to those suburbs during daytime, I don't think you would experience it as very unsafe. What you might experience is that it's boring. It is like those suburbs planned just with residence blocks and a lot of empty public spaces, which is also a problem from a safety perspective. It can be a very empty place in which you might feel vulnerable. It might be, it's not in a human scale, as Gal would talk about. It's very big open spaces and small alleyways. Of course, they were planned from a perspective that's from a traffic safety perspective, basically, like separating the walking paths from the car ways and stuff. But that also creates like a disconnection between people, between the different traffic modes, and actually makes for more hiding places or places where you would walk alone. Basically the physical structure is a problem there. I would say.
Cornelis, tell us about the project that you're working with. I'm super interested now. You mentioned surveys and...
At the moment, actually, I'm working with analysis that we do in one of those suburbs around Stockholm. And those analyses, they are based on that we, from the Safer Sweden Foundation, we go out there actually in this area and assess the physical environment. We look at all those 9 factors, like everything from urban design to the different functions, activities.
Can you mention them?
Sure.
Do you remember them?
That we will see. No, it is like a model based on 9 components, starting out by the overall urban design of the area. And that includes like the layout, the identity of the place. Then we look at more basic components of an area. For an area to feel safe for most, you should have a mix of functions. The third one should be that there's a mix of people using the area also. So we do some flow analysis. We look on how people go around in the area, what activities or functions they use mainly, and we actually count men and women, look at how they are distributed. So the fourth aspect is about the readability of the area. So how you can navigate through the area if it's clear between different areas, like the borders between private and public, for instance. And then we have another aspect, which is social control. So the possibilities for like this informal control of the residents, but also formal control. How possible is it for instance, police to exercise their profession in the area? How present are they in the area? And then we look at the lighting. So we look at the different lights, but mainly from a perspective like if all the central areas are well lighted, if it's like even distribution. Then we also look at, we look at the target hardening. So then we look at like locks, we look at the different, basically security measures in the area. But not from our, not that like we want more fencing, we want more cameras. We actually want them to be integrated, because that makes it possible that those kind of measures are working. They fulfill actually their function, but they are not taking over the perception, your first view of the area. Because if you see a lot of like barbed wire, if you see a lot of cameras, you will of course feel unsafe because this is a place that should be guarded, for instance. And then how many did we have? Then the 8th aspect is about like the maintenance of the area. So we analyze actually, we look at how many graffiti is there, how many trash, and from that perspective assess the area, because this has to do with like that it gives a sign of the area taken well care of, that people like this area, and that there's people going around. And the last aspect, or the last component, is about information and communication, which is that when you live in an area, you usually know what is happening, and you have all those kind of apps and everything is on the internet, all the information. But as a visitor, you also want to know what is happening in this area, or who do you need to call when something happens. So we look at different, if there's like a information sign for the area with a small map, for instance, how to go around, where are different functions. Is there at the most central places, like a bigger playground, sports field, are there some signs on who to contact at the municipality when you want to report something broken, or is there some phone number to the police, or for instance. So those are actually the aspects that we look at. And it's basically, of course, when you assess a place like that, you cannot guarantee that everybody will feel safe. But it is about like assessing all the different components that can provide this base, and that can basically create the right circumstances for everybody to feel safe. And then, as we were talking in the beginning, it depends a lot on your experience. Maybe you have been in this area before. All the aspects might be on like green light and 100% good. But if you before had some bad experience there, it might still affect your feeling of safety. It's a very complex topic, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's not really easy to work with.
No, and but that's also why when doing those analysis in specific places, we do interviews with people representing those living there, with the local police, with the municipality, the different businesses or schools, for instance, just to also get this feeling of how people actually see this area. Not just looking at the physical aspects and the crime statistics, but trying to get the full picture.
Yeah. If I ask you what are the top 3 reasons that make people feel unsafe, do you have something in mind, just quickly?
When we talk with people, their feeling of safety is often, it is often affected by bad lighting, actually, which doesn't mean that there is bad lighting, but it is about dark places. Then it is about actually that there is not really anybody else, so there are not many other people at the place. That also makes you feel unsafe, or there is just one certain group which is dominating the place and basically ruling. That creates a feeling of unsafety. And then the third one, we can say that it's about the maintenance. So like if there's a lot of things broken, if there's a lot of graffiti, a lot of tags around, you will most likely get a more unsafe feeling.
Yeah, super interesting. And I'm also interested to know, what do you think about the future city, the smart city? So how do you define a smart city?
Yeah, I think smart city is often being talked about like when talking about technology, having different devices, measuring all kind of data and tracking movements or people, or trying to innovate around this part of technology in order to make the city more sustainable, reuse different input and stuff. But I would say that that's one part of being a smart city. A smart city should be a city that is a city that's gonna provide a good life for everybody for a longer time to come. So not just making a good city right now, but to plan a city that can last for generations to come. And there, I would say safety plays a big role. You might also know this hierarchy of needs from Maslow. It's like a pyramid based on like the different levels that we as a human need in society for us to function. The first level is very basic, that we need to exist and coexist. We need to have food, we have sex, for instance. But the second level, that is about safety. We need to have economic stability, we need to have a house, and we need to feel safe. For if we don't feel safe, then we cannot go further and accomplish our life as we want. We cannot make it to the third level, which is about creating a community, creating relations, contact with different people, finding a job, for instance. We cannot go to the fourth level. Basically do what we want, live where we want, do the activities that we want, do the work that we want. And neither the top level, the fifth one of the pyramid, which is about fulfilling our life dreams. If we don't feel safe to go out, if we don't feel safe to make contact with other people, we will never be able to fulfill our dreams. So safety is a very basic aspect in making a city smarter from a sustainable perspective, I would say.
And how much technology can help us in order to establish safety?
As safety is a feeling, it will not directly help us with making our personal perception of safety better or influence that. But I think it can help us a lot with identifying the problems in the city and keeping track of the different situations. Technology, there are already a lot of ways on how to measure flows of people, how people use different places, like Telia right now with the COVID is pushing out data on the tracking of mobile phones and where people, if they move from Stockholm or not, or their movement patterns. And they just launched the app for the municipalities to measure their main like beaches and main parks during the summer, not to make it too overcrowded. So there are ways to measure how people use a place, and that can also help us in assessing if there are places that are not used, which are probably unsafe. So then we can go in, okay, why is this place unsafe, or why is it not used? Or we can measure crime real time also. Measure reports and act on that like instantly. Technology can help us a lot with providing the right data in order to plan better for the future, but also to act like instantly and make the places more active, more safe in a way. Technology will never, I think, never say never, but will most likely not be able to act on all our personal feelings of safety. But it can help us go in the right direction, of course.
So you don't believe that in the future robots can establish safety and they will help us like as a Robocop?
No. No. I don't think that's the way to go. When it comes to, even when we talk about like surveillance cameras, there is there's not substantial enough research that really shows that surveillance cameras will provide a higher feeling of safety in any situation, or it will prevent all types of crime. Certain types of crime, it will have an effect, yes. Other types of crime, it will have no effect, or even a negative effect. So I don't think that technology or this kind of control really can help us with our safety in the city. You do want to have this, and you still do want to have this personal contact. I can imagine if you like put robots out in the street to control, for sure, offenders will find a way around, or they might even find it easier in a way, because they might be more predictable. But yeah, it's a guesswork.
Do you feel safe in Stockholm?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say, yeah, it depends on the place, but in general, I do feel safe. I would say that I would sometimes feel uncomfortable going around certain places, like in the city center during nighttime when you're going around alone, for instance. It might feel unsafe in a certain way, yeah. But in general, I myself feel quite safe going around.
Nice, good to hear that. So, if a robot takes you back in time and tells you that you're allowed to change one thing related to urban planning and design, what will you change?
Yeah. No, I would actually want to change the moment that the functionalism came into the architecture world. To wipe off Foucault from the map. No, because if you want to have an attractive, safe city, you want to have a varied city, a city with different functions. When this functionalism came to the architecture and planning, it was a lot about building one type of buildings. There was, of course, a housing crisis, so we needed to build a lot of buildings. But it's not just about giving people a room or a house. It's about giving people a society, or giving people a local place to which they can connect. So you cannot just build like houses and open spaces. You need to build a city as a whole, I would say. So if we wouldn't have had this functionalism in the urban planning, we wouldn't have ended up with this ABC cities which are very divided between functions. Those suburbs that we are experiencing right now, which are quite problematic from mainly the public space aspect, I would say.
Yes, and I agree with you. I wish that this didn't happen, But anyway, yeah, we are the generation that, how to say, experience how bad it is, and hopefully in the future generation will have it good. So
yeah, hopefully they will not say, "Oh, how bad they were planning in 2020 there." Yeah. What a bullshit they were talking about.
And what will you add to the cities now?
Could be a policy or something else, like.
Looking at cities here in Sweden, from a general perspective, I think that we need to have a more stronger rule on when it comes to safety, a rule on having this as a policy when making new plans, not just to do it afterwards or in areas which are already problematic, but to have it as a rule from the beginning. And for instance, like in the UK, they have police which are officially positioned at the municipalities to assess new building plans. If they are not approved by the police, they are not going to go further. But such organizations we don't have here in Sweden. But for the cities in general, I would like the public space to be more active. And that can also help a lot, making them more safe. There is actually research that shows that when you have around like 100 people or more which pass by a certain point, then you have a place where you have like a good social control, informal, because you will never end up with a situation that there's just two persons, so like the offender and the victim, but there's always at least 3 persons in the room if you have 100 or more passing by. So then there's always this person that can help. So making the public spaces more active, and you have more social interaction in public space which is maybe in Scandinavia a bit difficult, as the culture is a bit more like not so open, especially in public space. It's not so spontaneous, but I'm sure there are ways to do that.
Super interesting, and again, thank you so much for inspiring us with your favorite topic.
Yeah, no problem. It's interesting to think about it from a Swedish perspective and then try to take it to an international level.
Yes.
So hopefully it will bring something to the English listeners as well.
Yes, thank you so much again. So what is the next step for you going to be?
The next step is trying to make this new handbook or concept that we have, this Boertrukt 2030, as we have in Sweden, that we launched during spring, to make it digital, so to say, to make a digital platform.
What is it about? The book with the 9 criteria, right?
This is like a handbook that we launched during the spring. It is in Swedish, unfortunately. So a next step could be to translate it to English. But this is a handbook describing on how this perspective of safety comes into play in the Swedish planning process, and describing certain checklists also. We have like around 150 points covering all those 9 different aspects, which you should consider when planning for new buildings, new areas. So this handbook, the idea is to make it also like a digital platform, that it can be even more interactive and more useful for practitioners.
Cool. I wish you all the good luck.
Thank you. You too, with more interesting podcasts.
Thank you so much. So how would you like to summarize our conversation, your reflections, and 3 takeaway messages to the listeners?
I would like to say don't focus on lightning, but no. No, I think like first thing is that safety doesn't have to be like something expensive, something difficult. It is about very basic, easy to do things, basically. So don't be afraid of thinking about safety when planning or when doing some urban design. The second one is that safety is also not about just building right, doing good from the beginning, but it's not about having a long-term perspective, managing and developing an area on the go or for the future, so involving the users and involving the local businesses, for instance. I would say that safety is, as we started out, very personal. So you cannot think about, okay, this measure is gonna create a very safe place for everybody. You always need to take the local perspective, think about who is using the place and also who is not using the place, because they might feel unsafe and that's why they are not using the place.
And the 3 hashtags.
Oh, 3 hashtags again, yes. Hashtag safety. We take the hashtag CPETD, the CPETD, which stands for Crime Prevention through Environmental Design, and hashtag we have to do urban planning, of course.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. Please follow Instagram and subscribe the YouTube channel for live talks. If you have any great story that makes our city smarter, please contact me. Urbanistica is being produced in collaboration with Landskapslaget, that working with landscape architecture, urban planning and design based in Stockholm, and also H22 Helsingborg Smart City, the making of smarter cities. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.